Welcome back, Dom here, and I hope you're all doing great. On this video, I have a very special topic for you. On this video, I'm going to show you plugins that I use to spice up my synth sounds, to make my synth sounds more interesting, have more depth, have more animation, and all these beautiful things. Now, as a sound designer, the first thing that I always try to keep in mind when I'm designing a sound is to get it right at source and then worry about the effects. But of course, after you create a sound, adding effects can be a crucial and one of the most interesting parts of your sonic palette. So in this video, I'm going to show you some of the plugins that I use to make my sounds more interesting, make my sounds more vintage sometimes, more 80s, give them grit, give them space, all these beautiful things. So without any further ado, let's jump into Cubase and I'm going to show you which ones are my favorite plugins at the moment for spicing up my synths. Let's do it. So in order to demonstrate this for you, I've loaded up an instance of Retrolog. I like to play live so I can get a feel of the plugin sound sometimes. Here I've loaded like a very simple patch that I just created on Retrolog and it sounds like this. You know, you can play some cool stuff with it. And now I'm going to show you the first plugin that I use to make my sounds a little bit more interesting, a little bit more organic, a little bit more vintage. And it's a plugin that I've started using recently. It's called Super VHS from Baby Audio. And I love this little plugin. This is such a cool plugin and I'm going to show you why. First thing is that you can start adding some really nice textures to the sound. For example, I can start adding static. Check it out. And this immediately adds quite a bit of character to your sound. I like this because especially modern synths are very, very clean these days. And this is a blessing actually, you know. In the past, synths tended to have like a lot of noise, they had like ground loops, there were all sorts of things that people were trying to get rid of. But maybe at this stage, you might try to get a little bit of character, a little bit of noise, a little bit of dirt into your synth sounds. This static, I love it, it's very cool, and you can dial in as much as you want. Now, the next thing that I like is this heat control right here. This can add a little bit of warmth to your sound. I like this, check it out. Or it can become really, really gritty, you know? You can control the mix, so you can go... So you can really saturate it and then add it in a parallel fashion, you know, so this is really, really nice. So what I tend to do is I tend to add a little bit of heat and then I go for the magic control. Now the magic control, to my ears, it sounds like a super nice chorus. It makes everything really nice and wide. Let's try it. You know, it's beautiful. It's also very organic. I like what it adds to the sounds. It adds some harmonics. It doesn't stop there. Let me show you what else this thing can do. You can add drift, so this adds some really interesting variations in pitch that are invaluable if you want to get this kind of analog, vintage kind of sound. Again. And then you have the wash control here that adds this nice reverb. It's kind of lo-fi, but I really like it because sometimes for certain genres of music, you want this kind of lo-fi reverb to your sound. And this is actually pretty cool. I like the fact that it's grainy. Now if I add the shape here, this sounds like it's a sample rate reduction algorithm. I'm going to show you what it can do on a different instrument. Like this is another one of my favorite synths. This is Rasta. I love this synth. Let's try the Super VHS on this one. And for this one I have a very simple patch actually. And let's try the Super VHS on this one. Let's try the drift and see what it does. In longer sounds, it sounds even more prominent. So again, without it. See how the sound acquires movement, interest. And the great thing is, it's so simple to use that you can just slam it on anything, see if it works, and just have a cool sound straight away. Now the next plugin I want to show you is again from Baby Audio. I've been trying out their plugins lately and they're really amazing, and this is the Comeback Kid. I mean, what I really like about the plugins from Baby Audio is that they look the part, you expect something that came out of the 80s when you look at this plugin. So I really like that. I like the fact that you can also change the interface. This is pretty cool. But what I'm going to show you now is, again, I'm going to play this very simple Retrolog patch, and primarily what Comeback Kid is, it's a delay, but there is so much more to this. So for example, you have quite a few things. I'm going to try and give you a quick tour of the plugin. Basically, you can set it from a simple delay into a ping pong. And there are quite a few interesting parameters here. You have the stereo parameter, so basically even when you're not in ping pong, you can make the delay line wider, which is really cool. Let's make it richer as well. And of course, if you want, you can make it mono. And that creates some really interesting effects. Now, the other thing that you can do with this plugin is that you can even make it sound cheap, which is great because check it out. It makes it even more gritty, it gives it more character, and it sounds a little bit more 80s if you ask me. Now let's go and try the tape. This adds a little bit of saturation. It almost breaks the sound a little bit. I love that. And then we have the swirl. And the sauce. And then we have the Destiny control here that basically gives the delay some unpredictable variations. Ducker, really cool thing on a delay. See, when I'm playing, the delay gets ducked. And how much? I can turn it up. Now, one of the very cool things about this plugin is these controls right here. Of course, we have a low cut and high cut, very self-explanatory. But you also have an attack and sustain here. So the more you add attack, the more snappy the delay line comes back to you. Check it out. Or with less attack, more attack. So it kind of hits you in the face. And the sustain can make, basically it's an additional control to shape the feedback, And I've actually created some sauces that I use for synths already. Let me play this sequence for you. So let me show you a preset, for example, that I've created for Comeback Kid. I use it all the time for sequences, and yeah, I call it Dom Spice. I have a few spices there, so I'm just like adding spices to a food, and this is Dom Spice 2, one of the presets that I created, and check out what it does, okay? get a silence between those sequence notes. You get a nice kind of transition that comes up because of the ducker and also because of the attack control. And let's try my Dome Spice 3. Let's see how that sounds. The core of it is a delay, but for me, this is like an extra layer of synthesis that you can introduce to your synths. And for example, if I go to my Rasta instance here, and let's see how it sounds without. And now let's see how it sounds with the Comeback Kid. See how much movement we get out of the sound. Really beautiful, really nice, and let's make it cheap. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyway, that's the second plugin that I wanted to show you. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this is a plugin that I've been using for ages, and this is the BBE Harmonic Maximizer. This is one of the secret plugins. I barely see any people using them these days, but I've used the hardware unit back in the day, and this was one of the things that it has such a specific sound that you cannot get anywhere else. And I use it for kick drums, I use it on basses, I use it on pretty much everything. But I don't want to talk, it's such a simple plugin. What I'd use it for is to add depth and bottom end to my synths. So let me play this retrolog sound. Very cool. Now let's add the BBE. See, I mean, it's very easy to overdo, but it can add a very beautiful, nice girth, low end to the sound, and it's such a simple plugin to use. You might think that it sounds a little bit like, I don't know, Waves are bass, but I can tell you, it's not the same. They do different things, and they do those different things very, very well, each plugin on their own. I prefer to use this for basses that are kind of static, or maybe kick drums as well. It can give you a lot of nice, beefy low end. I would say if you haven't tried it, give it a go, it's really beautiful. Now, let's go to the next plugin that I'm using to spice up my synths, and this is the Softube Doubler. Again, really nice plugin that allows you to get nice width, animation. It sounds so organic, and the thing is, because you have control over the left and right drift, you can get a lot of interesting stereo effects that sometimes in a busy mix, one solution to get a cleaner mix is to spread things left and right, and instead of having everything in the center that might be occupied with your main leads or maybe your vocals or your drums, all these things, you spread out the synths and you get a bigger sound, and as a result your mix will sound bigger. So this is one of the secret plugins that I use all the time to get width and depth for my synths. Moving on to the next one, I'm a huge fan of Valhalla reverbs, and Shimmer is one of the reverbs that I use to create incredible sounds using synths. So in this case, again, I'm going to use the retrolog. Let's listen without. And now I just need to turn it on and you'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think I need to say anything. The sound speaks for itself. Let's go to my Rasta, and now let's see how it sounds on a longer pad. Bliss. I love it. I love it. Such a cool reverb, such a cool sound design tool. So in the comments down below, let me know which plugins you use to spice up your synths. I'd really like to know because I'm researching all the time when it comes to plugins, so I really want to know your opinion, guys. So lovely people, if you enjoyed this video, maybe you want to hit the like button. It really helps, you know it. And if you're new here, maybe you want to consider subscribing. Welcome to the channel. Until next time, have fun, guys. See you on the next one.